Amazing grace. Amazing grace. How sweet thou art. How sweet the sound of that. Amazing grace that saved a wretch like me. There are many people out there in the world who would not, oh no, I can't describe myself as a wretch. Well, that's why you don't appreciate what God has given to you. Because if you realize that somehow in the presence of God, you are like a wretch, well, then you will be able to appreciate the salvation that God has given to us. Amazing grace. You know, when you look at your life, when you look at, sometimes like I was saying before, it's like broken pieces. You are no longer the person that you thought you used to be. Maybe you think, oh yeah, I'm old now. Oh, maybe I messed up so much. There's nothing good left in me. It's like, can anybody do anything with what is left? Can God himself even do anything with what is left of me? And I think I'm kind of, I'm looking at myself and it's like, all I see is just debris. All I see is mess up here and there. And I think the way I see myself is the way God sees me too. But the amazing grace of God trumps all of that. It surpasses all of that. The amazing grace of God gives us something what we do not deserve. The broken pieces of our lives. These broken pieces scattered all over the place. Can anything good come out of that? But God takes the broken pieces of your life and makes a beautiful mosaic out of it. Yes, broken pieces. When things are broken, that's where the grace of God manifests even more. When things aren't the way they're supposed to be, in fact, the entire world is not the way it was supposed to be. God created a world that was, going to be really great, beautiful. It was beautiful. It was great because everything he created at the beginning, he said, it was good. And when he created man, he says, it was very good. But we made our choices and messed up everything. But where sin, where disobedience abounds, the grace of God abounds even more. But we always got to make a choice. The amazing grace of God. Today, we're going to talk about something, just continuing with our exploration of the story of Ruth last week. Today, we're going to talk about letting go and growing from it. I had preached this message before, and then I looked at it as gaining access by surrendering. Because if you're holding to anything, whatever you're holding to is also holding you. If you're holding to your past, that past is also holding you. We stopped at Ruth's declaration. Landmark declaration of her irrevocable love and devotion to Naomi. We looked at her acceptance of God's people, Israel, and her acceptance of God himself, her loyalty to God, the God of Israel. And you know one thing? At the time she was expressing her loyalty to the God of Israel, at the time she was expressing her loyalty, this irrevocable love for the people of Israel, her acceptance of them, she was at the same time saying bye to all the things that she had ever known. She was also saying bye. It was a rejection of the gods of Moab. Everything that she had ever been familiar with, been used to, everything that was dear to her, she says, I'm going to say bye to those things and accept the God of Israel, the people of Israel, and of course, Naomi here. She renounced the gods of Moab when she accepted the God of Israel. And like Paul, Ruth was at that time counting everything as worthless for the excellency of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord, as Paul would say. Ruth was saying everything else is worthless to me. I count it all as rubbish that I may know, that I may embrace God, that I may embrace God, the God of Israel. Yes, it's the surpassing greatness of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord. And you know that when you turned from your former ways and accepted Jesus Christ into your life, what happened? All of a sudden, you came into his family. You came into the family of God. You came under the shelter of God. You exchange your personal limitations. You exchange your personal limitations for God's limitless power and resources. That's what you did at the time. And you gained access to all the spiritual, and the social, the emotional, and even the material privileges and rights of members of God's household. That's what you did at the time. If you were nobody, and a whole bunch of us, we were nobodies. If you were nobody at the time, what happened is that you became somebody in the presence of God. You did. You became somebody in the presence of God at a time. You became someone in the household of God. You became royalty like Ruth. That's what she's going to become. Ruth here, because of her acceptance of God, because of her acceptance of Israel, the people of Israel, Ruth is going to become royalty. She has become a person of great responsibility and influence because she gave up what she had in order to obtain what she needed, something of great worth. We all need to let go. We need to let go of what's holding us down. You need to let go of that, whatever that is that's holding you down. That's something that you're holding as if it's so valuable. You need to let that go so that you can 100% embrace the God of Israel, the God who created the heavens and the earth, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's what Ruth did. And we also saw another landmark decision, choice by another person, a lady, Orpah. She chose legitimately to return to her gods, as Naomi has said, return to your people and to your gods. And she took that. It was legitimate. And when I think about Orpah's story, I think about this story that I read. The story goes that a guy from Maryland had discovered much gold in Colorado. And through the help of his family, he got machinery and all to help him in mining and the transport of gold. He made a ton of money from that. But something happened. The miners hit a dead end, and when the vein of gold, when the vein of gold stopped showing itself, all of a sudden stopped. They tried and tried, they couldn't make it. Frustrated, disappointed, this man who had made a lot of money said, you know what, hey, I'll take what I got. He sold his machines to a junk man around the place and left. Because it was a dead end. So after a while, sold it for cheap. It's worthless. And the junk man, after some time, hired an engineer. Say, hey, can you come take a look at this gold mine? Because he bought both the mine and the machines. Can you take a look at this for me? Use your expert eyes and check it out for me. And the engineer looked at it and he found the answer. The miners had quit 3 feet before the next vein of gold because they didn't know much about how to read the fault lines, the engineer said. Just 3 feet to the resumption of this vein of gold. See, sometimes we all come close to making this breakthrough in our lives, but we allow the lesser things, the urgent things and all of that to get in the way and grab our attention. and get in the way of us reaching or gaining this access to a greater gain. Orpah chose this relative, convenience of returning to her people where she would have the greater chance of getting married again, because that was important in those days. It's still important today to those who care, but it was a big deal for her, a young woman. She needed to get married, and so she made a decision to go back. So we read that she took the chance to go back because, as I read it, the prospect of this perpetual widowhood in a foreign land and among an unknown and unfamiliar people and culture was just too much for her. It's like, no, I better stay stay where I know and I am known. I better stay in my tried and true territory. I better stay in the familiar territory. So that's what she chose to do. The fear of the unknown, yes, is very crippling. It can cripple you, and just like, I don't know, man. I'd rather not venture into that. The fear of the unknown is crippling, and of course, that quitting in the face of uncertainty, it seems like it's kind of liberating. Oh yeah, man, gotta give that up. Yet we know from experience that the secret of success, oftentimes, in any field, the secret of success oftentimes lies in that risk of embracing the unknown, embracing the uncertain. So you and I, what do we need to do? We might need to hold out a little longer. We might need to push our faith a little more, a little further. And we may find a way because God is certain. Ruth chose a better thing. She chose the best, though it didn't look good at the time. It did not. And today we're looking at, now they left, Ruth and Naomi. They're going back to Bethlehem where they came from, where Naomi came from. And there's something that's going on here. Naomi seems to be, going forward. Sound like a kind of contradiction here. It's going forward, but in a backward way. Just think about it. And before I even go into that, I want to say to you that you want to learn from your past. Take advantage of your present, but to look and move toward the future. The past is gone. You can learn from it. What are the broken pieces you have right now? Can something good come out of them in the present? Learn from your present. Learn from the past. Use what you have right now and move to the future. You gotta let go. Leave behind and move. Leave behind the things that were holding you down, and move toward this future that God has placed before you. Move toward this God's great call upon your life. I mean, think about it. Probably as a kid, you tried, walking backwards, just like moonwalking, some kind of, right? Except it's a serious thing in life. Have you tried, you're walking backwards, you're looking at where you came from, but you're moving forward, but you're going the wrong way. And it's sort of like, you're going backwards. All the time, your focus is on where you came from. Your focus is on what is behind. And the apostle tells us, no, that's not how to live. You got to leave those things that are behind and move towards the future. We notice here that Naomi is taking this kind of walks, not smooth, not straight, at least emotionally. She's making physical progress toward her destination, but she's still an emotional wreck. She continues to see herself in light of her unfortunate experiences, all the losses in her life. They arrive Bethlehem, and the women of Bethlehem see her. They say, "Isn't that Naomi?" That's actually exciting. When they say, "Isn't that Naomi?" they're saying, Isn't that sweetness? Isn't that pleasant? That's what they were saying, because that's the meaning of Naomi. Anytime people say your name, they affirm who you are. They recognize her. I'm pretty sure they were excited. Probably she changed. She's much older now, or a little older. Yes, things have changed in her life. But Naomi wasn't excited. She was still stuck in this negative self-perception. Her losses, it seemed, and she believed, had basically robbed her of her identity, robbed her of her worth, and robbed her of her promise. And here's what she says to them. In Ruth chapter 1, 20-21, Ruth says this. She said to them, "Do not call me Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. I went away full, and the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi, when the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has brought calamity upon me?" Wow. That's worse than the blues. Very negative. All she could see was just broken pieces, shattered, scattered. Can anything good come out of this? That's what she sees. Don't call me Naomi. Don't call me pleasant. Don't call me sweetness. Don't call me Mara. Call me bitterness. Call me bitter. I am bitter. I have turned from being sweet into being bitter. And you know why? Because God has dealt bitterly with me. God hasn't been nice to me at all. God has brought me back empty, even though I left full. That's her story. That's Naomi's story. She's writing her story, and the way she writes her story is all bad. It's all pain. It's all bitterness. Everything is bad. This is where she really articulates that. She started saying this earlier, but now this is how Naomi sees herself. And she also articulates this view that God is against her. Man, if God is against you, you're done, really. But that's what she thought. She doesn't know. She does not know what God has in store for her. I went away full, and the Lord has brought me back empty. Really? Is it really true? How's Ruth supposed to feel about this? Ruth, who gave up everything she had to follow Naomi. So she's nothing? I know a lady back in Nigeria, who had 3 children, all girls. One of them was married and, married to a man of means, and then the other ones were little at the time. She's like, in her society, it was like, at the time, it was like, wow, no boy. I have no sons. All God has given me are just this 1.5 people, so to say. That's the way she saw them. They're just 1.5. How are those girls supposed to feel about? How are they supposed to feel about that? But you know what? God has used those girls to do the things that most guys couldn't do. Took care of her in her lifetime, blessed her, and continues to bless the family today. But as far as she was concerned, God has just blessed me with nothing. She's still Naomi, though. She's still sweet. She's still pleasant. But she can't reconcile these contradictions. Just as some of you can't reconcile the contradictions in your life, the contradictions between your true identity and your bitter, your negative circumstances, you just can't find a way to reconcile them. And so you take the negative viewpoint. That's how we are as humans. We want to take the negative. It's like, but what about this? Oh, no. You got to look at the negative instead of something. There's a silver lining here. Ruth is here. She can't see beyond her past. And that's why she's stuck in this past. See, she's pleasant. She's sweetness. But because of her circumstances, she has redefined herself. And she now identifies herself as Mara, meaning bitter. And sadly, how you see yourself is how you will act toward yourself. How you see yourself is how you're going to respond to life, and that's how you're going to respond to people, because that's how you see yourself. And I'm talking to all of us this morning. We have that tendency. We have the tendency, all of us humans, it doesn't matter where you're hearing this. Oftentimes we just focus on the negative. And then we wonder why things are the way they are in our lives. It is because of the way we see ourselves. Because the way you see yourself oftentimes is not how things are. And even if it's how things are, really, God is able to make a change things around for you, as we're going to see here. Naomi, here's what Naomi is really saying. I'm just putting words into her mouth here. Here's what she's saying. I'm going to be sad. I'm going to remain depressed. I can't be confident or excited anymore. I can't, because of the losses and disappointments I've experienced. I can't. Life can never be the same. I don't think I will ever be as good and as happy as I had ever been before. I don't think so. I can't ever be as happy as I used to be. I don't think I will ever get past the effect of all these losses or of my sickness or whatever loss that I have experienced. I'm stuck. I can't get out. Life will never be the same again. That's kind of what's going on in her mind. And as I was thinking about this morning, it reminded me of that Life Alert, commercial where the lady fell down and she picks up her Life Alert thing and pushes that. It says, "I've fallen, I can't get up." And what does the guy at the other end say? Help is on the way. Help is on the way for you. That's what she's saying. That's what Naomi's saying here. If you keep thinking that way, if you and I keep thinking that way, that's how we're going to continue to see ourselves, and that's how we're going to respond to ourselves and to life itself. As we read in the book of Proverbs 23, verse 7, it's describing this guy. It says, look, no, don't eat the food of the stingy man, because you're going to vomit all of it. And he makes a statement that's a little more universal than just that guy. He says, as he thinks. That's how he is. It's not even a matter of what he says. What he thinks is more important than what he says or what he does. As a man thinks, and somebody picked up that thing and wrote a book about 1902 or so. He wrote a book, As a Man Thinketh. So how you think is really how you are. What you think is more important than what you do, because your thoughts determine your actions. But guess what? You want to realize is that God made you a separate, unique individual with a personal identity, with a personal worth, regardless of what you have, regardless of who is around you. Regardless of your relationships, you still have worth in the presence of God. And by the way, you are independent of your material stuff, what you have or what you don't have. Enjoy your relationship, but you know what? You are still an independent person before God because God created something special in you. Now I want to say to us today, there is life. There is hope beyond your losses, and whatever they are, whatever those losses are. There is life and there is hope beyond your losses. There is light at the end of this long, dark tunnel that you've been going through. There's light at the end of this long, dark tunnel. If you believe persistently and keep moving, you again will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living, as the psalmist says in Psalms 27. If you believe consistently, you're going to survive the changing circumstances of your life. You will. Because they don't define you, you define them, and you're going to use them to accomplish what God has chosen for you. You're going to use them for your growth. So you got to give up all that negative stuff. Give up all that negative thought, that stuff that tries to hold you down to the past all the time. You got to give it up and move forward because that's where God wants you to go. It might not look like it, but God still has a plan for you. As long as you're alive, God has a plan for you, which may not include, this plan may not include the possessions you have in the present, may not even include your present or your former relationships. God has a plan for you as a person. And his plans are fleshed out in his word and in his promises. See, people become depressed and lose confidence when they shift their eyes from God and his promises and fix them on their own limitations. Now I want to say this. Your losses, your disappointments are real, and they have the potential to derail you. But you must focus on God, the God of the present, who is able and willing to give you beauty for ashes. Able and willing to refresh you with the oil of gladness instead of mourning. Able and willing to clothe you with this garment of praise instead of the spirit of heaviness. Isaiah 61. The God you're dealing with is a God who is the same yesterday, today, and forever. See, while Naomi is worried about all of this and seeing herself in this very negative light, she forgot. She forgot that the God of Israel had already established principles and systems to take care of people in a similar destitute situation. Those things were already in Israel, but she forgot all about that and is so concerned, as you and I do. We're worried about this and worried about that, and we're worried about everything, not realizing that God, the God of the present and the future, is able to take care of us. She shouldn't have been hopeless at all because God already had a system in place to care for the people who were poor, people who needed recovery like her, to sustain them, and even provide a legacy for her husband. She forgot. But she'll remember. You know, even though she was walking backwards, so to say, she was making progress. She was making progress. It's better to be in the church than to be out there. It's better to be among the believers, among the people of God, than to be out there where you have no hope at all. Because here, as soon as she starts going back, all of a sudden, those things will start coming back to her. It's like, God is actually faithful. Yes, I remember now. It's not as bad as I thought. But she could not have realized that if she had remained in Moab. But now that she's back in the land of Israel, it will start coming back to her. Everything that God has established, all the systems that God had established. Yes. For right now, she still, continues to believe in that the God is against her and cause her to lose everything. But that's wrong, though. I mean, let's get it. Because we know that God is in control. It is wrong because that belief contradicts everything about God, contradicts the unchanging person and promise of God. God who is always with you. The God who wants to give you hope and a future. The God who doesn't intend to hurt you or to harm you in any way. When Naomi said that, she was basically impugning the character of God. God knew about her problems. God knew that her husband had died. Knew that her sons had died. Painful, painful. But God didn't cause them. It's a fallout of living in the world, and sometimes a fallout of disobedience, being in the wrong place. Happens to everyone. But she forgot to hand over her life to God now. She's going to come to it. See, when you hand over your life to God and depend on Him, the Lord is going to take it from there. He's going to take charge. And He's going to direct your life, direct your affairs to bring you to that expected end. A hope and a future. God is always in charge. It doesn't mean that He violates our choice, our freedom. No, but He's always in charge. He's always in control. And sometimes in our lives, His providence is so clearly orchestrated that, you know what, we just we'll realize ultimately when I'm not in charge. There is a God in heaven, one God alone, and that's not me. We realize that God is in charge. It becomes abundantly clear to us that He's in charge and we are not. And all we need to do is to trust Him, go along with Him and enjoy the ride. Let's take a look at a few things that happened to them. A few coincidences that happened. And these coincidences actually point to the Lord's providence. Let's take a look. First of all, Naomi and Ruth just happened. They just happened to arrive Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest. They could have chosen any other time to arrive. But they arrived at the beginning of barley harvest. It just so happened, right? Just the right time. Verse 22, so Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned from the country of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. 122, Ruth 122. Had Naomi returned alone, as she was persuading her daughters to just go back and I'll go alone, had she returned alone and in this state of mind, she would have had a real hard time surviving. I mean, she won't be able to get up in the morning in that state of mind. Depressed people don't do that very well. You get up in the morning and go to work and be happy and glean and all that. No. But God was looking out for her. Because Ruth, the younger woman in this place now, in this beginning of barley harvest, says, you know what? Hey, I'm not going to just sit around here. I'm going to be a blessing to you and to myself. I'm going to not sit around here. Let me go out to the field and glean wherever I may. I just go out to the field because that was a system that God has put in place. That during harvest, you don't harvest everything. You got to leave some things in the farm. They deliberately leave some things in the farm because they knew that the poor and the destitute will come, they will come out, behind the reapers and gather stuff from where they had already, harvested crops. It was entrenched in the culture. So she said, I'm going to go out and just glean where I may find something to glean. So she went out to wherever she might find favor. And I want to say this to you, that yes, we gotta, when I say loss, I'm not necessarily talking about human beings or whatever, very critical. But let's mourn our losses. But Let's not forget to count on the relationships that we still have. Because God uses the people around us. God uses the people in our lives to lift us up in a ways that we had not anticipated. Second, Ruth just happened. I'm just going to go out to glean wherever I might find favor. Ruth just happened to go into the right farm. Another coincidence. She just happened to go into the right farm, a farm belonging to a man called Boaz. And this Boaz is a close relative of Elimelech's, Ruth's father-in-law. And this Boaz is a wealthy man, a very influential person in the clan. It just so happened that she got into this farm. That's what it says in chapter 2, verse 3. So she set out and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And she happened, I love that when the Bible says that, and she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the clan of Elimelech. She didn't know Boaz. No, she didn't. She's just reaping. And she got into her, Boaz's territory, so to say. And we're going to come to Boaz here in a minute. Number 3. It also just happened that when this Boaz returned to the farm from Bethlehem, when he returned, immediately took notice of Ruth. It's a small town, so everyone knows every other person. But Boaz takes notice of Ruth. Then Boaz, in verse 5 and 6, chapter 2, then Boaz said to his young man, who was in charge of the reapers, whose young woman is this? She's different. Haven't seen her before. I don't know. In some place, probably had some tribal marks or whatever. I don't know. Whose young woman is this? Whose wife is this? Or whose daughter is this? Probably whose wife is this? And the servant who was in charge of the reapers answered, she is a young Moabite woman, has no name. Nobody even knows her name yet. She's a young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. She's a foreigner. She came back with Naomi. But we're going to talk about that. See, talk about being at the right place at the right time, or basically having a divine appointment and not knowing it. Oh, by the way, can I say this? Your reputation travels far ahead of you. Your reputation spreads way beyond where you are. Many people who have not even seen you, they already know a lot about you. So be careful what you're doing. Boaz already knew all about Ruth, even though he had not set his eyes on her. Question for you. What do you make of these coincidences of your life? Are they just a matter of chance? Flip a coin? No. They are God's whispers that he is working behind the scenes to orchestrate and accomplish his purpose in your life. I believe it was William Temple who said, when I pray, coincidences happen. When I pray, coincidences happen. It just happened after I prayed. The entrance of Boaz into this story is a game changer. Someone God has already prepared for something. It's a game changer. It's going to change the present landscape of Naomi's and Ruth's lives and the history of their family. Because as I said, Boaz had already heard about Ruth's character, her kindness to mother-in-law, and then he goes ahead and instructs his lead reaper, and instructs him, hey, nobody should mess with this lady. Take care of her. Take good care of her. And Ruth, don't go anywhere else to glean. Always come to this farm. Always come here to glean. I want you to stay safe. I don't want the guys out there to molest you or to say some bad things about you or whatever. No, always come here to glean. Verse 11 of chapter 2, but Boaz answered her, because at first Ruth is going like, wow, how did you take notice of me? How did I find this so much favor in your eyes? And Boaz said, all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me. So he knew all about her before even meeting her. And how you left your father and your mother and your native land and came to a people that you did not know before. Ruth, I appreciate that. I already knew a lot about you. Your character, your reputation already traveled farther than where you were, and I know about you. I got the story. See, what's going here is that Ruth is immediately welcomed into the community of harvesters. She receives attention and provision from this very kind, very humble, and very God-fearing man, Boaz. Remember when Ruth made that declaration? Remember when she made a declaration, your people shall be my people? She said that at a time, but she didn't quite understand all the ramifications of that declaration, that statement she made. She didn't realize the implications of all that declaration, which is being fulfilled right here on this farm. Because by accepting the people without knowing them, Ruth already paved the way. She already paved the way for her own acceptance among these people. The acceptance that she's receiving right now, she paved the way. Through Boaz, though. These people, because of Boaz, the reapers are making her a member of the community. No distinctions. Treat her the way you treat everyone else. Don't care about her coming from Moab. No difference. Because you know what? As a Moabite, she would have been despised. As a Moabite, they would have been like, oh man, stay over there. That's how they would have treated her, because she came from the territory of their enemies. They would have treated her with that kind of discrimination and everything. But Ruth came to take shelter under God's wings, as Boaz is going to tell us here. Because of that, she has been accepted by God, accepted by the people, accepted in the beloved Jesus Christ, whom Boaz represents here. Oh, by the way, I told you already that Ruth's name means friendship. Ruth is a friend that sticks closer than a sister, the friend that sticks closer than a daughter. She came as Naomi's daughter-in-law, but her natural friendliness, her natural charm have now opened up for her new friendships. They just like her. There's just something about Ruth that's so attractive. Now she's not going to be treated as a beggar or the poor who would only glean, among the leftovers. No. She wasn't just going to glean the leftovers. Now she's been given the right to glean among the sheaves as a regular harvester. Isn't that what Jesus does for us? When we come into Jesus, he gives us the right of sonship. The prodigal that we talked about so much last week says, I just want to be regarded as one of your servants. The daddy says, no, you don't understand. My son was lost and is found. So basically, he was dead and he's alive again. And Boaz prays for her. And his prayer here tells us a lot, gives us a glimpse of his character. He says, the Lord, that's verse 12, the Lord repay you, Ruth, for what you've done, and a full reward be given you by the Lord. You just notice what, his language, what he's saying. To whom he's ascribing the praise and the glory, really. The Lord repay you for what you've done, and a full reward be given you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. I mean, Boaz was a rich guy. He had money. He was a person. I mean, so he could have said, well, my daughter, don't worry about it. We got you. We're going to take care of you. And he did what he could as a human being, but ultimately, he says, the Lord reward you. The Lord repay you for your goodness, your mother-in-law, because it is the Lord, under the wings of the Lord, you've come to take refuge. Men, we need to realize that it's not about us. It does not depend on us. It depends on the Lord. It is the Lord who blesses, for every good and every perfect gift comes from the Lord, from the Father of all heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. Everyone who comes to take shelter under God's wings will enjoy his protection. Will enjoy his protection and his provisions. For he says here in Psalm chapter 91 verse 1, he says, he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High God will abide under the shadow of the Almighty. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you'll find refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and buckler. You will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in darkness, nor the destruction that wastes at noonday. You will not be afraid of any of those. 1,000 may fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. With your eyes you will look and see the recompense of the wicked. It goes on and on. The Redeemer is now revealed. The Redeemer is revealed. Up to this point, Ruth had no idea about Boaz's identity or the significance of her meeting with him. So she gets home with all the food that she had gleaned and that had been given because they gave her extra. She's been blessed with, and tells her mother-in-law about Boaz, about her encounter with Boaz. And at that point, Naomi begins to get a better, okay, God is up to something here. God is up to something. I didn't quite see this clearly, but I can see clearly now. Right? I can see better. I can see that God is picking up the broken pieces of my life. He's putting them together. Boaz means swiftness. Boaz means there is strength in him. That's the name. That's the meaning of the name. I want you to contrast this. Contrast this swiftness and strength. Contrast that to the name of Ruth's husband, sickly. Ruth lost sickly, but she's about to gain swiftness and strength. And Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, verse 20, may he be blessed by the Lord. This is Naomi now. May Boaz be blessed by the Lord. She's getting a better picture now. Whose kindness has not forsaken the living or the dead. Really? I don't know how you read it, but when I read that, the way it is, you know what they call the law of proximity in grammar, when you see that, may he be blessed by the Lord, whose kindness has not forsaken the living or the dead. Or you want to read it as, may Boaz be blessed by the Lord because Boaz has not forsaken the dead or the living. I want to take either way you look at it, it's all good. Because God is the one who is orchestrating all of this. Naomi said to her, this man is a relative of ours. What? One of our redeemers. Really? I'm pretty sure that either Naomi had told Ruth about this whole redeemer stuff, or maybe because of their closeness, their proximity to the proximity of Moab to Israel, that she might understand the meaning of this. Probably not. Or maybe she later explained to her what this redeemer stuff means. This man is a close relative of ours, one of our redeemers. Okay. So here all of a sudden, Naomi perks up, acknowledges, Boaz's kindness and makes this significant connection or disclosure. Boaz is not only a member of Elimelech's clan, but he's also a close relative who rises to the level of being a redeemer. I'm going to talk about that. Two things are involved in the redeemer stuff. The status. First, as ordained by God, and as Naomi knows very well, real estate was not supposed to be transferred from one clan to the other. If you belong to the tribe of Judah, whatever land you have stayed within the tribe of Judah. You couldn't go from one tribe to the other. That's how God created it. Not even by marriage. That's why oftentimes they married within their tribes. Well, so if land got somehow sold to someone in another tribe, it was supposed to be redeemed by a member of the seller's tribe. If you mortgage your land to someone from another tribe, a member of your clan who has means should redeem the land and bring it back to the place. Right? Here's what it says in the book of Leviticus, chapter 25, 23 to 25. It says, "The land shall not be sold in perpetuity, for the land is mine." God is saying to them, "For you are strangers and sojourners with me." Talk about that today. Can't sell. I mean, we still do some of that, because a lot of the land you sell is not really in perpetuity. Somehow, after 100 years or whatever, something. Anyway. "And in all the country you possess, you shall allow a redemption of land. If your brother becomes poor and sells part of his property, then his nearest redeemer shall come and redeem what his brother has sold." This is one of them. It's part of what she meant by a redeemer. But there's a second meaning. This is going to gross you out. 21st century people, ladies in America, this is going to gross you out, but, it's just the culture. So just bear with me, okay, for a minute here, okay? All right, here we go. The second part of this redeemer stuff, that if a man dies without a surviving son, then his brother or closest relative will marry his surviving wife, and the first son of that marriage will belong to the dead brother to carry on his legacy. Okay. Deuteronomy chapter 25, 5 to 6. "If brothers dwell together and one of them dies and has no son, the wife of the dead man shall not be married outside the family to a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go into her and take her as his wife and perform the duty of a husband's brother to her. And the first son whom she bears shall succeed to the name of his dead brother, that his name may not be blotted out of Israel." Okay, I'm glad we got through that very fast. Okay. "And a brother who refuses to perform this responsibility to a dead relative is actually disgraced in public." I mean, there's something about the wife going and pulling off his sandals and spitting in his face in public for refusing. Anyway, so you understand. It's not quite that severe. It wasn't quite that severe at the time, as we're going to see here in a minute, maybe next week. But think about this. So Boaz is one of our redeemers. So Boaz is able to redeem land. He's able to redeem, the wife as well in this case, in order to create, a child for the husband of Ruth. He's able to do that. It doesn't mean that he's going to do it, but he's able. And if he refuses to do it, or any other person who has the same status that refuses to do that, will go down in history as a man who refused to perform his responsibility. Well, there's a lot of stuff that we're gonna leave out for today. We're gonna pick it up from next week, but just know for right now, Boaz is a redeemer. Where else have we heard the word redeemer? Jesus Christ. Here, Boaz represents Jesus Christ, symbolic of Jesus Christ, our Redeemer. It's a brother, our closest relative. We have sold ourselves to the devil and lost the means to redeem ourselves. We couldn't redeem ourselves. We could not be brought back into a relationship with God. But Jesus, our nearest relative, has come, and he has paid already on our behalf the price for our redemption. He has. All you and I need to do today is to accept the redemption that he has already purchased. Purchased by making himself a ransom for all of us and for everyone in the world. Everyone. He paid that price for everyone in the world. He's not only for us a propitiation for our sins, but for the sins of the whole world. Everybody. Jesus Christ is our closest relative. The God who looks like us. And he's paid the price. So today, what do? Let's run close to him. Let's embrace this Redeemer. Because God is leading us even if we don't know. We don't know